Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne Sportsnet production, available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I am talking with Wade Keller today on the podcast. We're breaking down Summerslam, about an hour and a half worth of it. So I'm going to get right down to business. We both watched the event. We both have our opinions. And I'm going to get right down to the business of this first spot. And we're going to jump right into the podcast with Wade Keller. Right after I tell you about something else, WWE related. I think Loot Crate's gone and created the greatest tag team in crate history. They got the WWE Slam Crate, a bi-monthly mystery subscription service for fans of the WWE Universe. And the first Loot Crate in the series is the Founders Theme, which celebrates some of the greatest firsts in WWE history. Loot Crate gave me permission to reveal a couple of items in the box. Here's what I can tell you. It's got the first card from Austin Aries, and a few of the Loot Crates will have autographed versions of that card. You'll also get a shirt back from the grave and accessories from a very special First Lady of Wrestling. This is an exclusive Superstar Collectibles line created just for the WWE Slam Crate. You can't get this stuff anywhere else, people. The WWE Slam Crate is delivered every 2 months, and for less than $30, you get over $60 in merchandise in every crate. I'm talking licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, unique one-of-a-kind items, and a lot more. And I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to give 3 lucky winners a free 3-month subscription to the WWE Slam Crate, and I'm going to give one really lucky person a 6-month subscription for free. And this is all you got to do for your shot to win. Tweet, I want Loot Crate's WWE Slam Crate to PodcastOne. Use the hashtag Steve Austin, and we'll choose winners at random. So tweet PodcastOne and use the hashtag Steve Austin. And hey, if you ain't one of those lucky winners, Loot Crate is still offering you this great deal. You can save $3 off your new subscription. All you have to do is go to lootcrate.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin. That's Loot Crate. LOOT crate.com/Austin and use my promo code Austin to get $3 off any new subscription. Don't wait. There are limited quantities of the Founders Crate, and once they're gone, they're gone. So get the best in WWE swag and save $3 in the process. Go to lootcrate.com/Austin and enter my promo code Austin. All right, technical difficulties notwithstanding, I am here with Wade Keller. Hey, what kind of crossover do you think of people that attended both shows, and maybe they were a tired crowd going into the WWE SummerSlam because they were also at NXT, and like you said, it was a long-ass show to begin with, but they were already just a little bit razzed or less gas in the fuel tank because they had been at NXT.
Steve, you might be right, but I'm going to say you're not because I don't want them to not do NXT TakeOver Brooklyn anymore because it's become my favorite night of the year. So I think it had nothing to do with hurting SummerSlam.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. And here's the thing. You were putting over that NXT card so much. You were impressed, I know, by the match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe. You were talking about that earlier.
Oh, the NXT show was one of the highlights of the weekend, and I think that Shinsuke and Joe, I'm on the higher end of liking that match. Everybody liked it. I liked it a lot. I mean, the ring entrance alone was spectacular. They brought out, Steve, a violinist to play Shinsuke's entrance song, and it was just the violinist and nothing else for a while. And then all of a sudden, the music kicks in, and the violinist keeps playing. Shinsuke comes out. The crowd goes bonkers. It was one of my favorite ring entrances, period, ever. I mean, I just thought it was so fitting of the circumstances. It's such a perfect song for him, and it felt special, but not – sometimes WrestleMania with their entrances, and they're fun, and it's part of WrestleMania, but maybe they go a little too far. This one didn't. This was just set the stage perfectly, and then Joe comes out next, and it's just this – perfect Samoa Joe music. It's just, I love NXT's music right now, and Joe and Nakamura and the contrast between them was great. And then they had a hard-hitting match, and Nakamura wins, and I'm really excited to see where they go from there in terms of Nakamura as a defending champion at NXT, and I'm really curious who they line up for him to face. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun run there. And Joe's just great too. And I'm hoping I'm got my fingers crossed they call him up to the main roster and maybe have him at some point cross paths with Brock. I think that would be pretty cool. But I think the match of the year for you, Steve, will be the tag match, the tag team title match with Dash and Dawson against Gargano and Ciampa was so an example of efficiency of moves and building properly with mat work. And again, Dash and Dawson, their gimmick is to build kind of like Gene and Ole, but it built perfectly. They didn't stretch out the build too long, but when they went into faster gear, it was phenomenal. And the crowd, it was one of the best crowd reactions of cheering for the faces, booing for the heels, reacting to near falls. They never lost the crowd. It was, I mean, it is, people are raving about it. So I'm excited for you to watch it when you get a chance to see what you think. But that, in contrast to ROH on Friday night, where the guys were just killing themselves, and by the end of the match, the crowd didn't really remember a lot of the spots, and they were more popping for the spots than the psychology. This was a clinic, and I would show this match to everybody in developmental and make them watch it 10 times so that they know how you can win a crowd without breaking your neck.
Man, that's interesting. I got to watch that. I love tag team wrestling. It's great to hear the guys take it back to the basics and just work fundamentals and not do anything crazy that's super high risk. As we get into the podcast, we'll talk about a lot of high risk things that happened during the WWE Summerslam pay-per-view, and really some eye openers like, oh man, is she okay, or is this person okay? Speaking of watching young wrestlers learn this match down at the Performance Center, what has been your news or your take on Shawn Michaels being hired down there? I haven't been able to get any information about this. Has this been confirmed? What is the story?
Triple H said if Shawn wants to stay, he is more than welcome to. I haven't heard confirmation, and I've asked around, and it sounds like Shawn is just seeing if he likes it and doing it for fun, while Terry Taylor, who normally plays that role, is recovering from neck surgery. It could turn into a full-time gig. He recently moved to Florida. So it's possible that, he moved to Florida and he's got an itch and he wants to get more involved. Maybe it'll be the thing where he's like, if you ever need me, I'll come in for a week or two. But, he doesn't want a time commitment where it's, a schedule and they're dependent on it. So that I haven't heard. But Triple H addressed it and just said, we'll see where it goes. But it's up in the air right now.
Man, but I tell you what, if you can get, and Terry Taylor's awesome too. I mean, Terry Taylor took a lot of guys under his wing. Triple H was one of them, and really helped him out. He helped me out. I mean, he was one of those guys that helped anybody out, actually. And Terry was always a hell of a damn hand. I thought he could have got a better run than he had. And he had a very successful run, but he was very talented, almost kind of like a Flair type wrestler. I'm sure Ric Flair was a big influence on him, but man, he went back and forth to WCW and WWE, back, and just never knew where he's going to stay. But he's a guy that's been around for a long time, and he's taught a lot of young guys a lot of good stuff. And if you're going to replace him or just hopefully he can get back in there. But I tell you what, if you get Shawn Michaels in there, I consider Shawn to be pretty much the best in-ring performer I've ever seen, period. Now, Flair's my favorite wrestler, same with Shawn, probably same with The Undertaker. Everybody has their own, but just as far as performance, from a whole well-rounded, just looking at his game, what he could do, the extra gear that he had, just along with the salesmanship, the fire, the mean streak, heel, baby, the whole ball of wax, if he's running that finish class, they're teaching you all the same stuff. Toyota makes a car just like Dodge makes a car. The basics are the same, but boy, all of a sudden when you can get someone who can really, get in your head and make you, or like Paul Heyman is with the promo, I think. And if you look at some of the guys that Shawn has trained, how they turned out, I think it'd be a big boost to the center down there, and especially to those damn kids that are trying to learn this business.
It's like learning anything. You can learn from a book, you can learn from watching, but when you learn from someone who had tremendous success and is good at explaining why what they did worked and why what other people are doing doesn't work. It's like the famous 80-20 principle. I think Shawn is as a worker understands, and I'd say he'd probably be his own worst critic in terms of looking back at his career and big matches going, knowing what I know now, I would have done this different, because people who are great are constantly reevaluating themselves and adjusting. And Sean's the type of person who can say, here's a hard lesson I learned. Don't do this. Again, be efficient. Make sure your moves count. Don't oversell, don't undersell, and how to get the crowd into it, how to listen to the crowd, how to adjust what you're doing based on the crowd. All that stuff Sean was part of, because he was part of the writers and producers and the more heavily meticulously produced era of WWE with as many hard times and that kind of thing. So Sean is just phenomenal, and Terry Taylor is great too. I mean, you're right, Terry. from guys who have worked with him, and sometimes they fight him on young guys, fight him on things he tells them because he's blunt, and he'll be like, don't cut out 2/3 of those high spots. No one's going to remember them. And you're going to be mad 10 years later. You're going to be kicking yourself, and you're going to go, Terry was right. Don't be one of those people. Listen to me now. And they fight him on it. But I think Sean and Terry both are people, especially Sean. People are going to listen to Sean probably more than Terry, just because they grew up watching him and he was a main event guy. But I'd just say people should listen to Terry too, because he's got a really good mind for that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what he does. Hey, man, let's get into the pay-per-view. We were talking about the energy of the crowd, and I was on a business meeting in a boat yesterday, so by the time I got home to watch the event, I caught it in progress, and I was watching towards the back 3 matches, Wade, and the crowd kind of seemed out of gas. And then right before I was going to go to bed, I was going to watch the rest of it in the morning. I said, man, I've got to watch that AJ Styles and Cena match because I heard a lot about it, and those guys are good together. And I was just standing in my kitchen, drinking a glass of wine, and watching that match, and holy smokes, they were in the 4 spot, and they blew the roof off that building, and I just can't say enough good things about both guys. Cena is mega over. I don't care what anybody thinks. If you don't like him, you do like him or whatever. Nothing but respect to that guy. And AJ Styles, the confidence, the swagger, his mannerisms in the ring, that mean streak. There's a lot of guys, or let me say there's a couple of guys with his same kind of skill set or move set. But the thing that separates AJ from anybody else in that company is his intensity, his focus, his delivery. The guy is a total pro's pro. I'm so happy that WWE picked this guy up and got him because he's one of the best workers in the world right now. And the match was off the charts. We'll get to it in a minute, but holy smokes, when those 2 guys went out there, that crowd went through the roof. And as we go back to the beginning of the pay-per-view, starting this thing off, it was Enzo and Big Cass who went to the ring first, and they took on Jericho and KO. It was a jump start in there in the ring. They got Enzo down, and then Enzo started shining. And so the crowd, give me your take on this, Wade. It was just a standard good match. And, back and forth action. Yeah. And then it finally gets some heat on Enzo. Big Cass comes in and makes a comeback. And discombobulation happens. There's some double team from KO and Jericho on Enzo. And KO and Jericho go over on Enzo and Big Cass. I thought it was just the match itself was fine. It just seems the crowd was a little hard. I loved a couple of things that KO did, mimicking Enzo, doing that little prancing thing he does. One time he took off and hit the ropes, just dropped down in a rear chin lock, just out there messing around. I thought this was just a very good standard opening match, and I thought the crowd would have been a little bit more into it than they were.
I think that that the wrestlers and WWE in general might have paid a price for there being a 2-hour pre-show. If people are tuning in at 7 Eastern and settling in for a 4-hour SummerSlam, because like a lot of people, they're like, I don't need to see the prelims. I don't want to sit through a bunch of video packages and panel discussions. And so they tune in live. They're joining a party 2 hours into it where the crowd has seen a match, waited for 25 minutes, watched another match, waited 40 minutes, saw another match, and they're kind of filing in. And so that energy of bang, bang, fireworks, we're ready to go, the music's playing, it just feels like a restart to the show. And I think the crowd has already kind of felt settled in as opposed to waiting in anticipation for the bell to ring and everything to start. So that hurts. I mean, doing a 2-hour pre-show on the network, I get the business side of it. Well, just, we want there to be more content for the fans, but I want the content that they present to be the best content for the fans. And I just don't think there's a lot of, they have the numbers on this. I just don't think in the aggregate that it's better to have a 6-hour plus show than a 3.5-hour show. Give us a half-hour pre-show. hour at the most, and then do a 3-hour pay-per-view. And I think that stuff like this, like you're observing, I mean, Big Cass got a hot tag, and they built to it nice. This act, Enzo and Cass are over. He gets a hot tag, and there wasn't a reaction. And this is Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho, and a new hot act like Enzo and Cass, that shouldn't happen. And again, they're making it hard on the wrestlers, who I think did their part here. I mean, I don't think you can blame the 4 guys for the fact that the crowd wasn't into it.
No, I really settled into the match about it. Maybe just a few minutes after they started heat on Enzo, that's when I thought the match really got into a groove. Yep. There was just a little discombobulation in the front. The match was fine. They did everything right, but just the crowd wasn't as engaged as I thought they would be on that hot tag. They didn't come like I thought they were. Big Cass has great fire. Early in the match, he gets, I think it's Jericho in the corner, or it might have been KO, but just drills him right in the forehead with a good right hand. So the kid's got a great working punch, good-looking guy, damn near 7 foot tall. That comeback needs to be a little bigger and a little bit wilder, and it needs to be a little bit more extended. You know, maybe that's on the feed side from the hills. I'm not nitpicking on anything, but just kind of his comeback is on him. So I think it just needs to jazz that thing up a little bit more extended a little bit. It was just too short of a comeback for all that heat that they got. And just, if you're just, I mean, you know, some of the times when I had DX and all those guys, I was so fortunate enough for those guys to be feeding me, and you're just standing in the middle of the ring and everybody's running in the right hands. But Big Cass, what I'm saying is, I love all 4 guys. Chris Jericho is going to go into Hall of Fame as soon as they let him in. Guy's had an outstanding career. KO's outstanding. Enzo's on fire on the mic. Big Cass is really starting to get comfortable on the mic with Enzo, and his work's coming around. Man, there's a real bright future for both of those guys, and he just needs to jazz up that comeback, just make it a little bit bigger, wilder, and a little bit longer. And I just thought that crowd would come, and you know, they were just kind of they were there. And again, it was a fine match. They didn't do anything wrong.
And you know, you talk about AJ having a swagger. Cass, if you go back a year and a half ago and watch NXT, he looked like he didn't have a swagger. He looked like he was a little nervous. I mean, just nervous when he come out there and was trying to pretend he wasn't, because his act required him to be kind of, you know, bold and brash. But you could tell, like, he didn't have that confidence and that swagger, and he has it now. And he's coming along in that regard really far. I would not have predicted a year and a half ago that he'd be where he is now in terms of that ring presence. Even just little things in the match, when Enzo is selling and taking a beat down from Kevin Owens and Jericho, the way Cass is like holding onto the tag rope, which I like that little detail, and leaning on the top rope and leaning in and yelling for yelling for Cass, yelling for Enzo and cheering him on. It's like, it feels like he's really, really into it, and he's doing so in a way that just it's believable, and it draws me in. And those are little things that not everybody has down, and those are little things that I notice and think he is someone, because of his size and the quick improvement he's made, that, I mean, I think it's a couple years away, but I think he can be a significant singles guy on this company.
Well, that's the whole thing I'm leading to. I see a big singles run down the road for that kid, and I'm glad you noticed the work on the apron as well. Pacing up and down a couple of times there, he engaged the crowd a little bit. He'd look at him, he'd look more directly at Enzo, very concerned.
Distressed. Distressed.
Yes, and he wanted that hot tag, and at one time he motioned to the crowd to come on, but you got to be careful when you're a guy that big. You can't be the 7-foot cheerleader there, because he's a badass. That's to me what you're trying to make Big Cass be. He's a badass because.
But he's the big brother too.
Yeah, he's a big brother too. But I'm just saying, working that apron is a lost art. I mean, piling up and down that thing or coming around as a heel. There's a baby face. Can't have your head up your ass. One time, there was a tricky moment in there. One time, a lot of stuff going on the outside. Enzo tried to make that tag. Jericho intercepted with like a body block. And technically, Big Cass was right there. He could have leaned down and tagged him. Of course, that wasn't the spot to, but that was being a real nitpicky detail that Cass could have done. But luckily, they got Enzo back out of there. So, Big Cass didn't have any egg on his face. But from a technicality, that could have been cleaned up. But again, he just needs to keep working on that comeback. I thought the match in itself was fine. I think with Jericho and KO going over like they did, maybe we'll see a rematch, and the guys will do it again. Maybe it'll go the other way. But nonetheless, I thought it was very entertaining, and it served its purpose. No one got hurt in this match. It didn't, Enzo getting beat feet, didn't hurt Enzo and Cass at all.
No, and I want to give some credit to Jericho and Owens, too, because Jericho, I just think, is doing, in some ways, because he's on the tail end of his career physically, but he's doing some of the best work. And, we talk about learning from Shawn Michaels and learning from Terry Taylor. Jericho has been good from the first time I saw him at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he's been great at times, too. I think the subtle things he does now as a heel, not only is it's so effective. He's learned how to get a crowd to boo someone who they grew up, in a lot of cases, loving. And he's so effective at it, and he's just all in. The way that he sells for Enzo and Cass is really, I think, helping Enzo and Cass come along. And I like, as a concept, when you have two guys who are semi-top guys like Kevin and Chris, but you don't have a singles feud for them, putting them together in a tag team, I like that a lot. I would like to see them stay together for a while and go after the tag titles too, and wait for fans to really be itching to see Kevin Owens in one-on-one matches again, because we saw Kevin just face almost everybody a lot, because with 2 shows, Raw and SmackDown every week, and him being so good in the ring, they just used him all the time to fill 20 minutes. And I'd rather see Jericho and Owens in that chemistry and have them stay together and have a run at the tag titles before separating them once again.
Hey, man, that's a great idea, because, Chris has taken care of a couple of guys in some singles matches as of late. Keep those guys together, keep giving them some wins. If you don't have anything, great plans for them as singles, Chris Jericho is one of the smartest guys in the business, from day one when I met him, just the way he works. And no one will ever outwork Chris Jericho. He's a smart guy. He knows the business inside and out. And, he's a valuable guy, as Kevin Owens. And I think those guys have good chemistry. And because they're both veterans, neither one of them are being selfish about this whole thing. So it was just a really good match. I was just surprised to see the crowd not as into it as I thought they would be. Let's move on with that. And all right, let me take a second to thank the great sponsor of the Steve Austin Show. They're the ones who let me do this for you free twice a week. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting my sponsors, like DraftKings. And why wouldn't you support DraftKings when they're giving you a free shot to win $1 million? And they're giving you that shot for free if you use my promo code STEVE when you make your first deposit. That's right. DraftKings.com is ready for football, and I know you are too. You've been studying the players and the teams. Put that knowledge to test and play in DraftKings Week 1 contest where they're doling out $5 million in total prizes. What's good about playing at DraftKings.com? No season-long commitments. You ain't stuck with the same players week after week. You can create your own custom league, or you can join an existing league and go head-to-head with fantasy players all over the country. You can play for free when you use my promo code STEVE. And probably the best thing about playing at DraftKings.com is that you could win $1 million in the Week 1 contest. So get to DraftKings.com now to choose your players, and you could seriously cash in on Week 1. Use my promo code STEVE to play for free with your first deposit. That's my promo code STEVE to play for free for your share of $5 million in total prizes in this Week 1 contest. Only at DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details. I guess the next thing up was the Sasha and Charlotte promo, which was awesome. It was the package just going back over their history. Charlotte comes out as a contender. Here comes Sasha Banks. I tell you what, man. Charlotte, when they hit that damn music for her, those people stand up, and that young lady carries herself like an absolute professional. She's only been in the business a couple of damn years, but her presence, and Sasha Banks has a great entrance as well, and I'm a big fan of hers too. But something so small, Wade, when both women were standing there almost in Charlotte's corner, the announcer made the announcement from the Queen City, Charlotte, and Charlotte just takes about 6 steps out there almost to center ring and just kind of puts her arms out, and, did her entrance. And, of course, they introduced Sasha, and she holds up the belt. But just the way she carries herself separates herself from damn near any woman in that locker room. She's almost, just like her father. And I know she didn't want to have her career in her father's shadow, but man, she commands your respect, and you feel her presence when she's in that ring.
She just like I remember on her entrance when she was introduced, and she is looking at the hard camera, and she's being introduced, and her body language is almost saying, "You're all here to see me, and you're lucky to be here to pay to see me about to win the championship." And then she just licked her lips with like this almost smug satisfaction of what was about to happen. It was it's different than Ric Flair, but reminiscent of Flair in that. I remember seeing him in the mid '80s in Texas on World Class Championship Wrestling, which was my first video exposure to Ric Flair. I'd read about him in the magazines and knew he was a big deal. But when he came into World Class, he carried himself with this gravitas, this gravity of being someone who is in demand worldwide. And this is his turn in Texas, and it's Kerry or Kevin or David's chance to take this title from him. And Rick carried himself in such a way that you were just glued to the screen. And absolutely, there's some genetic superiority with Charlotte that kicks in, along with just emulating him. But I think it helps her in a way that it would hurt a son of Ric Flair, in that because she's a woman wrestler, the comparisons are going to be different. She's not going to pale in comparison to Ric. As a female wrestler, she's just going to be she's herself, but that presence is there. And like you said, when she walked out for the ring entrance and held her arms out and then just gave this little look over her shoulder at Sasha before Sasha was introduced, it's just those little things are just, she has it down. And it seems like it should be simple to do, Steve, because it's not as hard as learning how to do a Hurricane Rana. But most people don't have it down like she does at this stage.
This is one of my favorite matches of the night. AJ Styles and Cena was my favorite, but this one was up there as well. Now there was a little bit of a couple of missed opportunities here and there, a little bit on the start, and there's a blown high spot there. I guess maybe right before they went into the heat, wherever the sequence was. But man, Sasha took a couple of really risky bumps in this match. It just scared the hell out of me. What were your thoughts on this match? Because, again, it finally, when it ended up getting in a heat phase, there was a couple of bumps there that were very risky. And then just the finish. Man, I love this finish. I'm leaving out the whole part of the match, but just jump in here and fill in some blanks with me, Wade, because you're the one that sent me a picture on my iPhone of one of the landings from a screenshot of Sasha landing on her head. I think that was from that first turnbuckle bump she took.
It was scary. I didn't like this, even minus the parts of the match that were dangerous. I didn't like it as much as you did. I thought it was a good match. I took a lot off in my mind. I was emotionally shaken up by the bumps that Sasha Banks took. The earlier spot where Charlotte was on the ropes and let go of her and dropped her, and her head hit the top rope, and then she bounced down. I thought that was going to be the scariest moment of the night, and I thought she was legit hurt. And then a few minutes later, there's a spot where Sasha just landed on her head, and I mean, it was one of the scariest things that I've seen. I mean, I thought she broke her neck. I thought she might be dead. I can't believe she finished the match. They need to stop doing this. I mean, and I'm real serious, that is not necessary. Natalya has had some really nice matches where there's a lot of mat work and the crowd was into it. You know, we talk about the lessons Terry Taylor or Shawn Michaels would teach the wrestlers. These women they need to be told, you don't need to prove anything by putting your body at risk like this. It's not fair to the fans to put them through that. It didn't make the show better that Sasha took those chances. Those big spots are not necessary, and Sasha's going to have very likely a shorter career because of this match. She went in beat up, really beat up, and she was planning to take time off after this match anyway. And so I think she just sort of thought, well, I'm going to be taking time off. Let's just, quote, make it special. If you can't pull off the spot, obviously don't do it. Even if you can, the risk factor there makes it unnecessary and not worth it. It really took me out of it. I really feel strongly that they just shouldn't be doing that.
But it was just so
Steve,
interesting, just to get into that, Charlotte ends up hip tossing her. And so when she hip tosses her, Sasha ties herself into the turnbuckle, hanging down. And then all of a sudden she goes up, or she's facing towards the crowd. Then Charlotte climbs up on the second rope, and she's basically going to give her a razor's edge. Yep. And as she's got her way up on the second turnbuckle, arms extended, as she goes to put her down, or to give her the razor's edge, Sasha counters with, I guess, a Hurricane Rana. Anyway, so Charlotte ends up coming down, and Sasha, as she goes upside down, boom, that's the moment of impact. She was able to rotate, I think, far enough just to take her. I mean, she's in harm's way. That was a bad landing, a very risky landing, but it could have been even a worse landing. And the fact that she was able to finish that match after that happened was, in fact, incredible. And like I said, Wade, there was some discombobulation in the beginning of the match. I don't like sometimes when someone would just pause and run into the turnbuckle at somebody. And so there were one or two moments of that in the beginning. There was the one blown spot on the double back bridge, whatever it was supposed to be. But what got me was the finish of the match. So not everything was executed to perfection on mechanical level, but at the end, when Charlotte kept saying, "I'm better than you," I mean, just the frustration in her face, everything about her, and Sasha was just nothing but pure effort. It was that emotion that pulled me into the match more so than any of the execution. So that's why I liked that match as much as I did. Some of the stuff they did was they maybe tried too hard to put too many things together of sequence that didn't work for me, but it was the emotional level. And just that finish. I loved that finish when Charlotte was able to, she was in the bank statement, but had the wherewithal or the strength or the length of limbs to rotate out or whatever and basically pin Sasha where she's got her finish on you and she gets her shoulders counted 1, 2, 3. You didn't hurt Sasha by beating her like that, but as we were talking before we even did this show, they probably should have left the belt on Charlotte to begin with. But I love the finish of the match, and I love the emotion of the match. That's why I was so high on it, because so many times these days, Wade, you see a lot of this and a lot of bumps and ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Nothing really sinks in and resonates with you because of the emotion, because it looked like a fight. And there were some sequence screw-ups, yes, but it felt like these two damn women were competing for that belt.
Oh, you're definitely highlighting the good parts of the match, and in everything I agree with you. That was good. The body language from Charlotte we put over. Sasha is great as that undersized, sympathetic babyface who, again, reacts to everything. A big part of sports, a big part of UFC is, and in the Olympics, is, and you'll know this from, because you were around in the 70s, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. That at ABC Wide World of Sports introduction resonated with me as a kid, because they would show people doing all these different sports on this weekend ABC show, and when they said thrill of victory, there'd be all these people celebrating wins, and then the agony of defeat, and they'd show that skier tumbling down the hill. It's ingrained in you. That draws money more than a top rope razor's edge turned into a Hurricane Rana that almost kills someone. That's I think the big thing about this match is Sasha and Charlotte had everything else there. The way that she put the bank statement on Charlotte at the end, and the way Charlotte sold it, nobody was going to get hurt. And it was, to me, more dramatic than even if the edge into the Hurricane Rana reversal worked. I liked the way they sold that mat hold, and the way Sasha sold the agony of defeat as Charlotte was celebrating, struggling to get up, and holding her back was amazing. Sasha talks all the time about admiring Eddie Guerrero, and I want Eddie went out to the ring, and from what everybody told me at the time, was a different person when the cameras were on than when he was backstage in terms of his physical energy. He looked beat up and battered, and that's what I'm hearing about Sasha right now, that she gives what she can when she's out there, but she's really beat up. I'm really glad that she's taken some time off to get better. I know people in that company who are concerned for her and are really glad that she's going to take some time off and get herself healed, because it's so tough, Steve. You've been in that spot where there's money coming in, you're on the rise, and you want to keep working, and you don't want to let down yourself and the roster and the fans. But I'm glad she made it through this. I don't know how much worse off she is because of it, but she needs time off.
Man, I give her credit for a real gutsy performance. And if she was, I didn't know she was feeling the strain of the dress or was pretty much beat up going into this thing. You have a lot more intel out there than I do. But I love her work, her heart. I think she's just, Sasha Banks is whoever she is turned up to an 11. I don't think there's not a whole lot of gimmick there. I think, yes, there is, but she's real. And so is Charlotte. And I thought the chemistry, the work was what it was, but just towards that finishing exchange and going into that finish, love the execution of the finish. That's what did it for me. So if Sasha's not feeling really good, please heal up, take care of your body, and come back. But sometimes you got to push the reset button because you know how it is, Wade. Nobody wants to take himself off the road. You don't want to take yourself out of a major storyline. You just got the belt, and you kind of beat up, and that's the way the business is. So it's a hard business, no matter what you think about this business, whether you want to call it sports entertainment or pro wrestling. It's a rough business, bottom line.
And even in recent weeks, I was told from one of the wrestlers on the show last night, she hasn't been bumping much, and she's been being protected because she's just so beat up. So I think she just wanted to tough it out and get through SummerSlam. And, so, I mean, she needs to just take the time off she needs and understand she's good enough that however long it takes, there's a spot for her when she comes back. Yeah,
let's move on. Let's talk about the Miz versus Apollo Crews. Man, I have right here in my notes, this is a short match. It was a good match. Crews makes a mistake, hits his head on the corner thing, and then Miz is able to hit his finish with the win, and he retains the IC belt. This match was a fine match. Mechanically, everything was solid. Psychology-wise, everything's solid. Apollo Crews is coming right along. For how long has he been working?
God, I don't even know. I mean, years and years.
Oh, okay, so I mean, he's good. Yeah. That's my point. But I just don't know a whole lot about him. And Miz just keeps hanging in there and hanging in there and hanging in there. And he's not going to be the biggest superstar in the company, but he's a solid, dependable guy. He works his ass off. He's great on the mic, and it was just a good, solid match. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it was quick. I mean, I think Apollo Crews, especially in the roster split post-draft era, is someone they should be protecting more. I'm hoping that when they get into brand-specific pay-per-views that he gets more time so we get to know who he is. I thought, as often is the case, NXT devoted time to his character development in a way that it just was quantity more, but also better quality. And so I think he deserves better. And I think losing to Miz in under 6 minutes in a unheralded match that probably had too many title matches and too many matches on it anyway, I thought hurts the perception of Apollo Crews. It defines him down as something less than he should be and can be. And so I worry about that. I'd rather just not have this match on the show and then have a proper amount of time to build up Miz versus Crews for the next pay-per-view that where there's room for them to have a full-fledged match. So that's my downside on that. But I mean, Apollo's been working since like 2010. He had a lot of acclaim on the indie scene and working outside of WWE when he came in. He's a great athlete. He's got a great look. I think a really nice natural charisma, a little Rocky Maivia, and that maybe a little too smiley, but I don't. I think that's so easily changed. And I think there's something about him that not everybody has, in terms of just connecting with a crowd and seeming genuinely excited to be doing what he's doing. He's kind of the opposite personality of Baron Corbin, and I love Baron Corbin's heel personality. Apollo Crews is kind of the other end of that spectrum. I just hope they protect him and know they have something in him more than just doing 5-minute jobs to Miz.
Now, when I saw him, hit the corner, he made a mistake. Miz capitalized, hits his face bust or whatever it's called, his finish. What I got out of that was, first of all, it was a clean loss, but it was a clean loss, but because the kid, hit his head, whatever. I come out of this way thinking, okay, he does the favors for Miz, and now they're going to start putting a rocket on this guy and give him a push. And like you said, you could delay this match and wait till you really got something in plan for the kid. But like you said, he has a charisma, damn good mechanic in the ring. I think they're going to start pushing him based on this loss.
There was a little distraction from Maurice that I think was supposed to be like the excuse for him losing, but the thing is he got a near fall right afterwards. He countered Miz, and so he really wasn't affected by Maurice's interference, and Miz really did just outsmart him by moving out of his way when he was diving towards him, and he hit his head on the turnbuckle and took Miz's finisher. I mean, it's not a burial, but I just didn't see it as a positive. And I just think, again, post-roster split, you can't afford to have a guy with 5-6 years experience and a really good upside like Apollo Crews he's 29 years old. It's like this is the time to protect him and push him. And I think hopefully this was more a sign of we got a lot to get to on the show. Let's cut a few minutes off this match.
Well, again, when I saw him go down clean, I was like, ooh, that, ouch. But again, that's just me thinking they beat the kid, but they're fixing to start pushing the kid, and we'll just leave it at that. Could they have left this thing off? Yeah, you could have, but I think they're going to push the kid, and I think he's a good-looking guy that can work his ass off, so I think they're going to do some good things with him. Let's talk about the 4 spot, John Cena versus AJ Styles. All I have here, unbelievable crowd heat. Love the swagger of Styles, love his confidence, that long lockup, that headlock into the forward roll, and AJ Styles called that off, and all of a sudden, Cena with a headlock, AJ leapfrogs him, drop down, hits him with a drop kick, goes up that second turnbuckle. He's celebrating. As soon as he comes down, Cena drills him right between the eyes. Perfect timing. And from then, it was on. These guys put on, in my opinion, an instant classic. Just like they have in the past. I just love Styles' intensity, his energy, his swagger, and his focus. These are all of my notes. Of course, John Cena is John Cena. I'll tell you what, you can't say enough about, some people think, some people think, John Cena has had world-class matches with everybody that he's worked with that could have a good match.
I know. He has. I mean, I'm going to jump to the end so I don't forget to say this, and there's a lot more to talk about on this match. But I think there was a significant moment in modern WWE history. Might sound like that's a big statement, but certainly John Cena's career and the trajectory of how his career is seen in this match, because he's in New York City. It's a hostile crowd. A lot of people look at AJ, and rightly so, admire him, and are so happy to see him, and see him on the stage against John Cena, and he is AJ and Cena is a dream match in a lot of ways for people who follow wrestling for the last 15 years, not just WWE, but also what AJ's done in TNA and New Japan. When AJ got the clean pin and celebrated and left, John Cena stayed sitting in that ring. And there was this moment of silence, this moment of quiet, and the crowd started cheering for John. And it wasn't the people who normally cheer him. It was the people who are skeptics, who think, yeah, put that STF on stronger. Quit making those goofy facial expressions. Right. What color's your T-shirt this week? Blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that's turned the guys against him for the past 10 years, those guys were cheering him because of what he did with Cena. I think there was a tipping point. And this is something that we'll know in 6 weeks or 2 months when Cena's back and we see what's next for him and what the crowd reaction is. I think Cena won over and had a tipping point for the things that you've been saying and recognizing for a few years on your podcast. I think he earned the respect of the fans finally. If that U.S. title run didn't do it, I think it laid the foundation. And I think not only having a great match with AJ, but jobbing to him, because there's fans who are savvy enough. They listen to these podcasts. They get it, how it works. I think they respected the hell out of him for putting AJ over clean. So I want to highlight and underline that. I think that's a big moment, and I wonder if we're not entering a different stage of how Cena will be received by those fans who have been booing him. Well,
however he's received, I mean, he's over. He's mega over. He's having one of the best runs in the history of the business. And the match was just full of great psychology, just full of great moves, great salesmanship by both guys. AJ is he's phenomenal, no pun intended. You had a couple of your trademark John Cena just feats of strength. The one time when he comes off the second turnbuckle with Styles and a fireman's carry and turns it into like a super AA, and then that I got wow written down on my paper. He counters, then AJ counters the AA, the follow up one to that, goes into a Styles clash, comes off with a Superman punch. It's a phenomenal form off the top rope. AJ Styles over on Cena. Obviously, I left out a lot of stuff in that match, but we already talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the show. Dude, this was just hands down from start to finish. If you want your people down there at NXT to watch, like you said, Dash Dawson against the other guys in NXT show, this is an advanced level. This is a 101. This was a badass match that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it had moments of drama. The holy, I would say, SHI when Cena when AJ kicked out of the big attitude adjustment off the second turnbuckle. That pause there, man, nitpicking. I would like to see him going over and try to get some more stuff on AJ, but the way Cena played it, there's a judgment call just to let that whole moment soak in, and it worked. And then they went home into the finish. I love this match. I get tongue-tied talking about it because there was so much stuff to talk about, but there was so much action in this thing, Wade, but everything made sense, and everything was sold.
There was a moment early, and I don't know if it made it to the beginning of our conversation or not, where AJ had the headlock on Cena, and Cena threw him off. This is a very start of the match, and AJ somersaults and lands on his feet. Because normally you throw someone off on a headlock, they hit the ropes, they rebound. You take a clothesline, a punch, you duck under, whatever. And AJ did a tumbled and then landed on his feet and then just clapped multiple times and said, come on, bring it on. And it's like that psychology of the Diaz brothers and what they do, talking about UFC 202 on Saturday night. That is something that happens in real fights, especially with the Diaz brothers. The middle finger that Nate gave to Conor late in the fight last night or Saturday night, the night before this, and just the way that the psychological warfare is part of the game. And I like that touch early. And then AJ, when he got ahead on Cena a little bit early in the match, I can't remember what the spot was, just maybe a shoulder tackle, but and AJ climbed to the second rope and just pounded his chest and played to the crowd. There were. I mean, you talk about the swagger AJ has. He has it. Cena played off of it really, really well. The only thing that I would say about this match is not everybody should do this style match all the time. I think that this style match of kicking out of each other's finishers as much as they did and doing multiple versions of their big moves, I don't think you can do that very often. I don't think you should do it very often. I think that some of the things that they did in this match that made it great should be reserved and limited for a special occasion like this match. And I think this match was designed by Vince McMahon or framed to be a moment when AJ becomes one of the top three acts in this company that Vince relies on. And I think that when you have a match where there's a huge purpose, it's not just to get a pop from a crowd and then to move on. This was to make AJ elevate him to the next level as a star and maybe, create a storyline for the next chapter for Cena. Then you can get away with doing as many big spots as they did. I would not want to see that many finishers, one after another, back and forth in a typical main event, much less mid-card match. But for what the stage being set in the context of this match, it's going to be on people's match of the year list. I think it's got 79% in our pwtorch.com poll as best match. There usually aren't runaway on a show with some good matches like this one had. Usually there's not a runaway vote getter, but this deserved it.
Absolutely. I feel the same way about the big finishes. But I think, you make great points about this. This was the match, for AJ to be considered a top guy. And if you don't consider him a top guy, then you need to find out a little bit more about the business, because AJ in every way is a huge superstar right now. And I just hope they continue to push him and keep him special. Because you don't beat the number one guy for the past 10, 12 years and not make this guy special. He can work his ass off, and he just looks like $1 million out there. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I don't care about that. When this kid's going to work with somebody, I want to see his matches because I know he can deliver. And this was, whatever you want to think about the business, whether sports entertainment and pro wrestling, when these two guys, when that bell sounded, I knew I was in for a ride, and so did that damn crowd. And that's some of the moments that really just get me fired up after all these years of doing it and being out of it. And now, like, God dang, Cena and AJ just ripped the roof off this place. That's pro wrestling. Okay.
I don't know how Styles can't be excited fighting John Cena in Brooklyn on a SummerSlam. This should have been the main event. There should have been a title on the line. There's some things because this match was befitting of that. But I don't know how, if you're AJ, you can't get amped up for this. He's fought at the Tokyo Dome, but he spent most of his career in smaller venues with TNA, being the best wrestler in the world that 80% of the country didn't know or see. And John Cena, at this stage of his career, being in the ring with a lot of great opponents, CM Punk and Edge, Rock, on and on and on. This is probably the top 2 or 3 opponent, and it's a fine hair of difference between them, that Cena's ever faced as an all-around heel opponent for Cena. I mean, I think AJ's top 3, and he might be number 1, and if he's number 3, he's close to number 1, and that's a fun debate to have another day. Cena has to be excited at this stage of his career that he got to face AJ when he's still physically able to do what he does, but also is as smart a worker as he is. And AJ as a heel has completely come out from under any shadow of Daniel Bryan. You know, AJ was kind of brought in, and the perception was, he's the token small guy that the hardcore fans like, that Vince will give a little push to give a good mid-card match. He has come out of Daniel Bryan's shadow and established his own identity. And yeah, I mean, it rolls off the tongue. He's phenomenal. There's a reason that's his nickname.
And just like you said, getting up for this match, yeah, you can see, and that first high spot, it was just grabbing a headlock, getting pushed off, and doing the forward roll, and going, no, we ain't doing that. He was basically saying, this is his ring. This is my night.
Yep.
And he owned it from the word go. Anyway, go ahead.
And escaping the attitude adjustment and then turning that into a Pele kick and then right into a Styles Clash for a kick out, and then Cena coming right back with an AA and getting a 2 count. You wouldn't want to do that in most matches where you hit your finisher and then Cena gets up and does his. That's kind of a thing right now in wrestling that I think is being overdone, where you have that surge of energy after taking someone's finisher and you give them yours and then you both lay down for a while. But there's latitude for an epic match like this. But like I said, the more I talk about it, the more I wish this was the finale of the night, because it was tough. As we'll talk about, it was tough for other matches to follow this one.
Well, they had him in the 4 spot, and nobody could follow this match. All right, I wouldn't be able to have Wade Keller on the other end of this line if not for the great sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. So let me give a shout-out to my close personal friend and longtime sponsor, Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. DDP Yoga has changed countless lives, including some of your favorite pro wrestlers like Jake Roberts, Scott Hall, Mick Foley, AJ Styles, and Chris Jericho. They all swear by DDP Yoga. And now DDP has taken his life-changing program to a whole nother level with the DDP Yoga Now app on iOS and Android services. So now you ain't got no more excuses about why you can't start DDP Yoga. The app means you can do it anytime, anywhere. And the cool thing about the app is that you can track more than just DDP Yoga workouts. By connecting to a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, you can track your calories and heart rate in real time, no matter where you are, what you're doing. All the fitness tracking features like pain tracking, measurements, progress photos, and much more are completely free in the app. And DDP Yoga Now subscribers can do the original workouts, the new 2.0 workouts, and live workouts from the DDP Yoga Performance Center. So get your workout on, get your healthy cooking on, and get on DDP Yoga program using the DDP Yoga Now app. And to make it even easier than he's already made it, for a limited time, you can get the DDP Yoga DVDs for 20% off, plus 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin. That's ddpyoga.com/Austin to take advantage of this great deal. Commit now. Change your life now. Go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. It's a great time of the year for sports fans. You got baseball heating up and football's back, both college and pro. And with so many games to watch, you're going to need a wall-to-wall TVs. And with wall-to-wall TVs, you should probably grab some friends to watch with you. And with friends, you're probably going to need some food. You get where I'm going with this? You're going to want to be at Buffalo Wild Wings. They've got the ultimate sports watching experience, and it's never been clearer than now. They've even got a limited time menu with a new all-time favorite flavor, smoke. That means shareables like the smokestack, a generous helping of kettle chips stacked with pulled pork, sauteed peppers, queso, and more. Or if you're not into sharing, order yourself the new barbecue bacon turkey burger. And you know Buffalo Wild Wings also have beer. So skip staying at home and head to the place that's made for this. They've got the menu, the TVs, and hey, it's hot outside, so they've got the air conditioning covered too. It's time to get excited, and they're excited to have you at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. All right, Wade, here we go. Let's start it up again. Moving on from John Cena and AJ Styles, let's talk about New Day. You had Kofi and Xavier Woods versus Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. Obviously, we had Jon Stewart out there at ringside. Break this one down for me, man.
I'm a big fan of Jon Stewart's work. Love The Daily Show. I think he's really smart. I think that there were layers of what he did on The Daily Show, regardless of your politics, that set a standard in terms of speaking truth to power, and I think he did it to both sides politically. People on the right would say he did it too much to the right, and I understand that, but he's really smart, really good at what he does. I don't want to see him on my WWE television show. And so I'm laying out that I respect him and like him. I don't like this idea that somebody just pulled him out of his house on a lazy Sunday afternoon when he was just going to lay around in his sweatpants and in his shirt, dragged him to the building, and that's the look he has. He's overdoing this idea of I'm not trying to look not trying to look like a star, and he's dressing down. It's like, if you're going to go to SummerSlam, you're not supposed to dress up for it. It's not like back in the 60s when you'd get on an airplane and everyone wore a suit. But come on, don't dress like that. So that irked me. And the whole thing, it's like it's fantasy camp for a celebrity who likes wrestling and his kids like wrestling, and he's getting in the way of something that is more serious, which is a tag team title match. If this is WWE getting infatuated with a celebrity who's willing to lend their credibility by endorsing your product, by getting involved, so that we can have a clip on YouTube or a click on TMZ or a clip on E or whatever of, oh, look, Jon Stewart graced us with his presence. Just stay out of my World Tag Team title match and dress up a little bit, like jeans and a T-shirt, as opposed to sweatpants and whatever he was wearing. So I was just irritated, and I like Jon Stewart. I'm irritated by this. I didn't like him getting involved in the match again. I didn't like that at a spot in the match at the end when Anderson and Gallows were going to beat him up, and he said, wait a second, I need to tuck my shirt in, because he made a joke beforehand about Old Man Belly falling out at SummerSlam last year. Nobody cares. Nobody noticed. It wasn't funny. It wasted our time on a long show. I understand they put this on thinking, well, this will be a breather for fans after that intense AJ Cena match. I get the logic of it. I was just irritated by if it's not clear, irritated by Jon Stewart getting involved in this. If it was a comedy match early on the show, I would have been less irritated, but still not found it entertaining. I want John and his kid in the front row, show him cheering, maybe, have an interviewer come up and have him talk about how much he respects the wrestlers. Stay out of the ring. He doesn't belong in there. This feud was a mix of serious and comedy.
Yeah.
You don't do nut shots. I mean, think about Lawler in Memphis. And that angle back in the day where Lawler got the nut shot into the post, crotched in the post, and he's in the hospital bed, and he's selling it, and it was a big deal. They did that with Big E. He's gone for weeks, and they turned it into this schmaltzy comedy with hard-boiled eggs in a jar of yellow water, and the tone was all wrong from the beginning. There's tag team titles on the line, and they don't even make clear what the finish is. I mean, though, it was all about Jon Stewart. They made Jon Stewart's bad comedy more important than protecting the prestige that there were tag team titles on the line. So I think that they DQ'd Big E for running in to save Jon Stewart. I think that was a finish, but they weren't even that clear about it. And this was one of the most irritating parts of SummerSlam for me, easily.
Well, dude, I love tag team wrestling so much. And you got your champs, the New Day, and those guys are really over. They're really entertaining. And, from the Bullet Club stuff, I've seen out of Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, man, those guys are heaters. Yes. And, with the comedy stuff, they really lighten them up. Doctor, using the chalkboard, all the stuff. And, these guys have talent. And you get belts on the line. Stewart's out there. I think Jon Stewart's awesome, too. But, man, here we are. We're in the WWE. We're at SummerSlam. And now you have your most over tag team, your tag team champions, and doing the comedy stuff with, KA and Gallows. And the match was what it was. It was just kind of a basic match with a couple of spots. And, Stewart gets involved. Here comes Big E. I never did know what the finish was, actually. That's why I was asking you before I went on the air, because I was confused. But I just thought, man, as hot as New Day has gotten, as hot as, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows could be, if they wanted them to be, this match just could have been a lot more, obviously, than what it was. And, dude, I'm not knocking all the guys, because that's creative. And they were given creative, and that's the bottom line. So it wasn't their booking. I just don't like how they were booked. I like all the guys in this match. They didn't get a chance to do what they could have done.
No, and the fact that Anderson Gallows are ready to – that they give their finisher to Kofi and they're ready to go for the pin and Stewart runs in, that's not a babyface spot. You don't need a celebrity saving you from a clean win. That's what heel managers do. So, again, the psychology of this was all – messed up. And then Anderson and Gallows have a chance to win the tag team titles. John Stewart runs in and breaks up that opportunity for them to end New Day's long tag team title reign, and they pause so John Stewart can tuck his shirt in. I mean, it was awful. It's that sports entertainment-y crap that it doesn't serve WWE well. There's a context for that, not in a tag team title match. Anyway,
go back, but but let's go back to the Charlotte Sasha match for the women's title. How important that belt is to those women, and here's the tag titles. So this is the guys' division, world tag team titles, and they're in a comedy spot.
Yep.
Come on, man. You can do better than that. Let's move on. Go ahead. Now, go ahead.
Real short thing, too. Stewart's about to get posted, and he's hamming it up with comedy facial expressions. Big E was out for weeks selling this, and they do comedy while he's gone. They expect people to really be up, think, oh, he's going to get revenge for what Anderson and Gallows did. And then when Stewart's about to get crotched, he's hamming it up with silly comedy, slapstick facial expressions. It was tone deaf.
Well, and poor, Doc and Carl have to execute this game plan. And, I'm not going to throw those guys under the bus or put heat on them, but I can probably imagine that those guys are serious workers.
Yeah.
Okay, end of story. World Heavyweight Championship. Dean Ambrose is a champion. He's taking on Dolph Ziggler. I have right here in my notes, worked hard, but I watched this pay-per-view out of sequence. So this is one of the first matches I saw. And so I didn't know that, people had already been at the building for 2 hours, seen all the pre-show stuff, sat there for as long as they did, watched the 4 spot get blown out of the water by Cena and AJ Styles in an instant classic. And all of a sudden we have the World Heavyweight Champion, Dean Ambrose, against Dolph Ziggler. And I have worked hard. Match was solid. Ambrose took a higher percentage of it. Finished with the dirty deeds. Ambrose over. My biggest thing here, Wade, the match was solid. It wasn't spectacular. It didn't have moments that really grabbed me. But from an execution standpoint, just a good standard match. But the crowd just wasn't that into it.
I think.
Am I calling this wrong?
No, you're totally right. They weren't, and it's too bad. I mean, this was a good match. I don't think the match fit the storyline. The storyline was Ziggler had been a show-off. He admitted this, that he had been going for crowd pops. This is awesome chance, trying to be a crowd pleaser, and he didn't have a winning record in big matches. And so his attitude now was, I'm going to be more serious. That it's time to go for the win. And so that's the story of this. That's the story of the build-up. And Dean is like, nope, I'm better than you, and I'm going to prove it. And I don't know if they just abandoned thinking about Ziggler because he's about to become Colonel Sanders in a comedy skit later in the show that was pre-taped last week. If they're just kind of abandoning that storyline or only half-heartedly into it, but it just was like a match that would have been thrown on SmackDown. It didn't really. The announcers didn't sell this idea really well of this being Ziggler's chance to change his style and show that he's going for the win and have more of an edge as opposed to being flashy in the show-off. And I just don't think that this match was a good payoff to the build-up. So that was my main takeaway. But as far as the crowd response goes, too, it was hard to follow that Jon Stewart nonsense. And I think whatever excitement and pride that audience had in watching a classic like AJ and Cena, I think they got taken back into sports entertainment ha-ha land. And I think it was demoralizing for the crowd. And I think that they were – I mean, I'm not ignoring the fact that there's some people in the crowd who are laughing at Jon Stewart, but and thinking, oh, that was kind of funny. But it's not the type of spot that gets people immersed and invested in the stories you're trying to tell in the ring, which, by the way, is why everybody is there. Because you can tune in on Netflix or HBO or Comedy Central and watch comedy. But when people show up at SummerSlam, they're into the storylines of people fighting to win. They've got the people they're rooting for, people they're rooting against, and they want to see athletes do athletic things trying to win. And so I think that hurt. It also hurt that this is a long show, and the big stars were still coming up later. And I think the crowd's deep into the show, and they're going, we still got Brock Lesnar Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Roman Reigns, and Rusev. There's a lot of big stuff still coming up, and I think they just didn't see this as a match that deserved the energy that they had left. I just don't think a face, and this is the third thing I wanted to cover, the face versus face aspect of it, Steve.
Dude, that didn't help anything.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there were so many. My point is, there's so many things working against the match, and the face thing was the other thing. The crowd didn't love Ziggler, but I thought Ambrose was a little bit kind of heelish in some of his mannerisms early on. And they just didn't know who they were rooting for, so they sat back and watched.
Yeah, and man, here's the thing. I DVR Raw. I rarely get to watch it. You're here, so you know all the storylines. Based on the storylines, then, I'd have come out of Jump Street with Ziggler on fire. False finish after false finish, or just always coming out on the good end of a high spot, shining, and boom, lots of false finishes towards the end. But the match never really shifted gears. It stayed kind of at one pace. Yep. There weren't any real highs. It just kind of stayed steady. And based on the story of what you just told me, hey, the show off, and now he's going to go after a win, and he's got the world champion. And I thought Dean took a higher percentage of the offense in the match, and man, it was just an average match, dude. It was just an average match. I mean, that's just, I got to call a spade a spade. It wasn't just an average match. And I'm not running. I like both guys, but just like you just said, they did not follow the story. And again, face versus face, after everything that's gone on, that didn't do them any favors.
And I think psychologically they made an error very early. They had Shane and Daniel Bryan out there to keep them apart. The idea, and they're kind of playing off of Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz having security, which was hilarious at the Octagon on Saturday night, Steve. The security standing between Nate and Conor during ring entrances to keep them apart, as if that would work, right. As if they could stop them. And and it was funny too, because Friday night at Ring of Honor, I remember Kevin Kelly saying, we've got security on all four sides of the ring. This was for the Adam Cole, Jay Lethal ROH title match. And the buildup for that was so intense for that feud that they say we've got not only security at ringside in all four corners to keep anybody from the club from interfering on the Bullet Club from interfering on behalf of Adam Cole. We have security backstage, and I don't know how many guys they said, like 12 security guys backstage to keep anyone from coming through the entrance. So 3 nights in a row, we kind of have that gimmick of security keeping people apart. Okay, that's fine. Shane and Daniel Bryan are out there. We want a title match. Wait for the bell to ring. So they're Shane and Daniel are literally pushing them away and holding them apart. The bell rings, and they circle each other for 30 seconds.
Right.
And then they do a headlock and a takeover, a hip toss. The tone wasn't right. I think the crowd would have popped if, as soon as the bell rang, Dolph charged at Dean and went for the win. But it didn't fit the tone before the bell versus after the bell, and I think that kind of was jarring too for the crowd. They were on the edge for the ring announcements, and then they just started off slow, like it was two friends just having an exhibition. So I think that hurt too. I think a lot of things were working against this match, but once they got going, I'm with you, Steve. And this is two pros having a good match. I mean, it wasn't a flawed match in its execution. I just think the context, a lot of things worked against it. Man,
and just going into a serious mode of trying to win a championship belt, I would have, maybe, hindsight and seeing what I saw, if I was Dolph, maybe work more heelish because you're trying to win. I mean, how far have you gone as a baby, and all of a sudden you get your championship match? If you've got to veer to the dark side a little bit, man, go for it. Have some edge. But they just needed more stuff, more fire from him to try to grasp that Jesus Christ, that's your friggin' title shot. It's how many of those do you get? Got to make the most of it. He needed to shine more in this match. End of story.
Yep. I'm ready for them to move on. I want to see AJ as a heel against Dean, and I want to see AJ become champion. I think Dean is fine. I don't think he's world champion level at this point. I don't think his character is a world champion character. It doesn't mean he needs to be, quote, lower on the card. He's a mid-carder. I just mean that character is more Roddy Piper-esque and not the world champion holding the belt, and I think SmackDown needs an AJ as the standard bearer of that championship, and I think that's coming up. I am curious where they go with Dolph. I don't think it helps that they had him running around dressed up as Colonel Sanders for a KFC commercial, which was also irritating. People on Twitter were like, am I tripping? What is going on here? It was just one of the weirdest cross-promotional things, and had Ziggler won the championship and they ran that skit, I would be more outraged. But
yeah, let's move on to the women's match, because I have that segment segment is right after the Balor-Rollins match. And so Nikki Bella makes a comeback. Eva Marie, I guess she's recovering from being too tired. So it's Nikki Bella, Natalya, Alexa Bliss versus Carmella, Becky Lynch, and Naomi. And, of course, in the finish, it was Bella over Carmella with the rack attack. Man, this was a 6-woman tag match.
Yep.
For a 6-woman tag match, it was just fine. It was what it was. I thought Naomi showed some great athletic ability. Man, that chick is a badass athlete. She does some really cool stuff. I'd like to see her more in a singles role, seeing her do some of the things she did with kind of like the Pele kicks, some of the other things that she was doing. I've never seen her do that because I guess I haven't seen her work enough.
I missed who you're talking about.
Naomi.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Very athletic.
What do you think of her entrance in ring gear now?
Well, because I haven't seen the Monday Night Raw, I haven't seen what she was doing previously. I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool. I mean, it was different.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah. It's pretty new. I think she's only done it 1 or 2 other times on TV. So.
Oh, but man, she's a tremendous athlete. If she picks up the work aspect of it, I mean, the sky's the limit for her. But, so this was basically 6 women out there working. They worked their asses off. These things can really turn into a cluster if they get out of control. I thought it was what it was. It was 6 women out there. Didn't give them a whole lot of time and ended up going over. Bella goes over Carmella in a rack attack. I mean, do you have anything to add to that? Because those are hard matches to have when you have so many people involved, the things that can go wrong. I thought they maintained everything, and it was about as good as it could have been.
I mean, you're not – I wouldn't say they were put out there to fail. They were put out there to bring people down from a world title match, a WWE title match. I don't think they needed to have a come down after that match, but that's what it was designed to be. And it was, again, an unnecessary match in the sense that this is a 6-hour show, total 4 hours for the main show. You don't have to put everybody on there. I think that maybe they're thinking post-roster split. We don't want to make it seem like the women's division on SmackDown doesn't count, so we need to get them on the show. But it didn't need to be there. I think that it added length to a show that didn't need more length. I mean, Natalya is always good. She's the ring general in there. I thought Becky, some of the suplexes she threw were crisp and just I like those Becky Lynch suplexes better than the complicated spots, even if they pulled them off, that Charlotte and Sasha were trying to do earlier. I'm a fan of just doing the simple basic stuff really well in the context of what feels like a fight. So that was there. I mean, Carmella and Alexa Bliss have a little bit of a challenge because I don't think that they come across as badass enough to be credible against some of the other people they're wrestling, and that's a challenge for them. But overall, I mean, it was 11 minutes of nonstop action that wasn't meant to burn out the crowd, but kind of give them a chance to take a breather and stay interested. And it worked in that regard. Yeah.
And so, it was what it was. It was a fine match.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, dude, let's move on to Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. I caught this match. It's, I guess, the second match I watched last night. I've got a solid match. Crowd not into it as much as I thought they would be. Balor over with the coup de grace, however you say that. He's the Universal Champion. Both guys worked their asses off. Spectacular entrance by Balor. It's cool that his folks were there. There's just notes I jotted down while I'm watching this whole thing.
Yeah.
God dang, from start to finish, the start was interesting. It kind of threw me off a little bit, but then they settled into a groove. I thought they told, a pretty good story. Seth, athletic as hell, has some good sequences that he does. I thought Finn Balor's entrance was spectacular.
Oh, yeah. I love his entrance. I mean, there's some people don't love it. I love it. I think it's great. I think they did it too soon. I like
the way they shot it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's something that when it was done in NXT in the context that it's done, it gives you chills. I mean, but the problem with this is I think, and from what I heard, Vince McMahon wanted to show what was special about Finn Balor with his demon side of him, but he didn't let it ripen. And maybe Vince just thinks, well, people know him from NXT, let's not wait. But the demon is supposed to come out in that second or third match. It's the equivalent of, it's the now you've done it stage of feuding with Finn Balor. It's David Banner, you don't make me angry or else, and the Incredible Hulk comes out. It came too soon. So there's a downside to that, and I think that hurt a little bit the match because it's like, where do you go from here? That said, it's SummerSlam, and I understand Vince going, we want this spectacular entrance on our second biggest or third, one of our top 3 shows of the year. We want it there because we're going to crown him champion, and he's going to be a centerpiece act for us. Let's show this side of him so people aren't wondering what's this relatively bland small guy doing with the championship. If we're going to crown him, let's crown him at his most colorful, literally. So I get the pros and cons. I still think I would have waited. In this WWE Network era, you're going to have people watching these other shows. It's not like the audience dropped 75% like it used to. So, or 40, 50, 60, 70% like it used to after SummerSlam. So, but nevertheless, this was my second favorite match of the show. Seth is so good. Finn Balor is so good. And the crowd, I thought, because the show was so long, they were irritated by the new red belt, and they didn't like it, and that turned into kind of a thing that they were focused on more than the wrestling early on. And I think it threw Seth and Balor maybe slightly off their game because they're kind of like, okay, do we wait for the crowd to get over this chanting about the belt, or do we try to get them into the match and fire up and go into higher gear sooner? And so I think maybe the first 5 minutes were a little shaky in that regard, but man, the final 15, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Balor, but I mean, Seth Rollins is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. I just think he is so good at what he does, and I thought that this is another example. He's such an effective heel. He's so athletically gifted, Steve. I think he needs to pull back sometimes on some of the athletic stuff he does. And I know he was talked about that back in developmental, that they told him slow down, make everything count. And he was resistant to it. It's like guys get there and they're like, well, what got me over? I want to stay over. I don't want to succumb to the WWE style. I want to stand out. And I think he still fights that today because he's so gifted. But as a heel, he's able to have great matches. This wasn't a great match. It was a very good match, though.
Agreed. It was a very good match. What I thought really, Wade, and this is what AJ Styles brings, a sense of urgency. I would have liked to see these guys a little bit more physical than they were, with respect to some of the sequences, which were really cool. But just, lay it in there a little bit. And then when Seth Rollins was gone from that knee injury, I thought he would just kind of rethink his game a little bit, not from a performance standpoint of a heel, of him being any more athletic than he is. He put some of the damnedest sequences together. Like you said, he's so athletic. He can do anything. But with respect to his character, and within the last 2 or 3 Raws, I actually saw him cut some promos. This was following the one he did in the empty arena, which I thought was a dud. But his last 1 or 2 or 3 promos, he's been putting a little bit of mustard on his words and a little bit of feeling in them. And I'm starting to feel him as a heel, or get more of a sense of who or what a Seth Rollins is. If he can keep upping his promos, further define who and what the architect Seth Rollins is from a character standpoint, so that I can, hate him more or dislike him more. That's what he needs to continue to work on and focus on. His work is through the roof. But just the care factor, or from a heel standpoint, heat factor, he doesn't generate a boatload of it. And various ways of underhanded cheating. I know they can't hardly cheat anymore, but that's where he needs to focus his work, is the depth of and breadth of his character. And that's what I would say about Seth Rollins. He's a phenomenal worker. Now he needs to work on his character.
Yeah, and I think what happens with Seth is he's so good at filling, most of the time, 10 minutes of mic time, and he can talk. I mean, sometimes you think if they, if they just told him we needed to fill 60 minutes talking, he could go, okay, I can do it. He's not at a short. He doesn't come up short on words, but his character, and I listen to what you're saying. I mean, I agree that as a heel, if he needs a more sinister side and less of the butt of the joke aspect of him that sometimes he was playing off of when he would be on the screen with Steph and Hunter.
Right.
I thought that when he would play off of the authority and be subservient to them, I think it hurt. We talked a while back on this show about Flair and the way he carried himself and the way Charlotte carried herself. I'm not saying that Seth is that guy and should emulate exactly like the Ric Flair heel. He's different in that way. But like a Gino Hernandez had an unhinged energy to him that was different than other top heels at the time, the Ted DiBiase's and the Ric Flairs. But he, in the end, you knew that he was a serious fighter. And sometimes I think Seth doesn't seem sinister and serious. He seems athletic and a foil for a joke, ultimately, who's just going to then give you a 4-star match. So I think there can be some tweaking there to be that top draw heel. And I hear what you're saying, and I think there is something there for him to do. I think he can do it pretty easily to shift gears.
Yeah, I would think so. So just put his mind to it. And then on the other side, Finn Balor, I saw a lot of his work from Japan, or just some of the stuff that I have seen. I love this guy. He's a great kid. I mean, he's 35 years old. He ain't a kid. But I love what both guys can do in the ring. The Balor thing or the Demon King, man, that's got to be somewhat of a difficult transition. The crowd was really with him every time he threw his hands up, and they were there for him. It was pretty epic. And they shot it perfectly.
I'd like to see
he's got to bring it a little bit more. I love everything he does, but he's just got to lay his stuff in a little bit more, a little more sense of urgency. You follow?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact spot, but I thought there was a time where in this match, I just have a mental note of it, that I was impressed that when he hit a big move, he didn't play to the crowd. He ran, I think, to the top rope and then did the follow-up move right away. And so, you talk about sense of urgency. I just had kind of in that one instance where I was thinking, that's good. I want to see more of that from him, and really in general with babyfaces, is when you have the advantage, have that sense of urgency that you want to win, not that you're playing for a crowd pop. So there's a lot of stuff that Finn Balor does well. It's new territory for him. He's been a top guy around the world, but like everybody, there's an adjustment in WWE to fit into the way that the crowds expect a top babyface to work. I think he's a really good choice to be a top champion, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go here with him. I mean, he and AJ, as if in a month from now or 6 weeks from now, Finn Balor and AJ Styles are the top two guys on Raw and SmackDown holding belts, and you would have told me that 3 years ago, I would have thought there was a regime change. I mean, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, so it ends up that Balor wins, and now he's the Universal Champion, and goes over with his coup de grace. Props to Seth Rollins, doing the honors. Didn't hurt him one bit. And it obviously now it boosts Balor, and big things are going to be expected of Balor. He's capable of delivering big things, I think. But he's got to continue to refine his characters as well, or bring out the Demon King, or lay his stuff in a little bit more, and just be a little more presence. Because he's by nature, I think he's just a mild-mannered super dude.
Yep.
But I need a little more energy out of him.
I'm curious to see how he does. When I say it's a shift, he's been in the main events before, but being a guy who's a main eventer who has to carry a weekly segment on a nationally televised WWE cable live show, that's going to be new territory for him. How do they keep him interesting in building up his matches given his promo style? And he's not going to have the Demon Ring entrance every week. No, he certainly shouldn't. So what are they going to do with him? Do they have a game plan in mind for him to sell himself and sell his future title matches? And I'm interested to see that. That's the part of new territory for him. He's been on top, but he's never had to do weekly promos or stay fresh while wrestling most weeks.
And again, I think he's bringing it. He's going to fall into a groove. He's talented enough. I believe in the kid. I think he's going to do good things. So we'll see as the Raws keep unfolding, or SmackDowns, whatever show he's on, as the shows keep unfolding, who they pick as his next opponent, how he defends that title, and it can get in jeopardy, have that crowd just begging for him to make that big comeback and then go off. Let's move into the Colonel Sanders commercial about a chicken little sandwich. The Colonel goes over the chicken. The Colonel was played by Dolph. The chicken was played by Miz. A cute segment. When I was watching my television or my computer screen, I didn't know what I was watching. So that was what it was. I don't think we need to spend any time talking about this.
I don't think so either.
But nonetheless, I hope both guys got paid.
Yeah. And I hope they got paid a lot, because I think it undercut them both. But Miz isn't damaged all that much. I mean, his character, I mean,
Miz can do anything. For some reason, that guy's got 9 lives. He's great on the stick. He's just a steady worker. I got a lot of respect for that guy. You know, what him and the other guy, Miz Dow, whatever his name was. I thought that was the worst gimmick in the world, and they knocked out of the park. The other cat gets fired. I don't know what happened there, but Miz is he's a hard-working guy. He shows up every time. He's always got a smile on his face. So, hey, man, I like that guy. I like both of them. Let's talk about Rusev versus Roman Reigns. This was Lana was present. She announced Roman Reigns. Jump start, nice brawling to start the match. The one time when I guess Rusev or whoever it was got thrown over into the timekeeper section, that happened about 3 times during the card, I believe. And I liked a lot of the camera work that they were doing all night. There was some great action that they caught and the way they shot this event. But the camera shakes up and down on the punches was very disconcerting, and I thought that detracted from the moment. And they did it 2 times during the event. The zoom ins and some of the way they panned, some of that was great camera work. But the up and down ones on each time he punched, that was a little much. All of a sudden, Reigns gets the chair, and Rusev is selling the ribs. And then the ringside doctor says Reigns is unable to continue, and they escort Reigns out. And then as Rusev is coming up, Roman comes out with a spear. And, end of story. What's going on here?
Good question. They did a match on Raw where Roman took a beating for a long stretch of time on Monday night, and then came back and got the win. And we're kind of going, all right, so that's an unconventional way to build up a pay-per-view match. Where are they just going to bury Rusev? Where do you go from there? They basically had a pay-per-view quality match in terms of length and outcome and story told on Raw. So I was curious what they were going to do here. I'm still not sure the rationale for it. I think that they felt they gave the fans enough that they could get away with not giving them the U.S. title match. This didn't get over in the building. Fans felt like they got cheated out of a match. I think the rationale was they got this intense brawl, and Roman brought it. I thought Roman was good here with facial expressions. He's upset. I wish that he had something more to be upset about storyline wise. That it would make more sense that he's this motivated and vile and vicious towards Rusev. I don't know how you dial it up any more than this, and I'm not quite sure what Rusev did to bring it on. So that part of this storyline isn't resonating with me. I'm wondering if they aren't trying to get Reigns over as badass because Vince is setting him versus Brock up. They're setting up Reigns as the badass who's the only guy in the company who can stop Brock. And I could see that this uncontrollable rage beating down a real credible heel in Rusev, the way that he did with that intensity, isn't really a means to an end, and that if we look for a reason for it within the context of this feud, it's not there, or even within this show, it's not there. But maybe when we see where they're going with Reigns, it'll make sense. But that's a total guess on my part, taking into account what they did next, and would also explain maybe a little bit the match placement back to back.
Yeah, so I don't know what to make out of it because I don't watch the show on a weekly basis. So I was just looking for a match and didn't really get one, and so it was what it was, and I'll leave it at that. Really can't nitpick anything. I thought, to your point, Reigns did fire up nicely after the spear. I would like to see him continue to be a little bit more vocal after that, because obviously that was intended as a babyface get over type gig. So go ahead and be a little bit more vocal even than he was, and really exude the energy. I don't mean go crazy, but it's just something I feel, or something that I used to do. That's how I mean that when I say it. I don't think that maybe everybody understands what I'm talking about. He could have brought it a little bit more, because they really popped for him there. And man, if they're going to pop for you, that hard-ass crowd had been there for so long, throw a little bit more gasoline on them so they can keep popping for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
Okay, so then there was a Total Bellas commercial. That looks pretty interesting. It's going to be on E! Network. And then there's a great package about Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton, their debut in 2002. Man, when you look back at that camp they had back then, it was Brock, Randy Orton, John Cena, Shelton Benjamin, Batista. Holy smokes, they had a crew of guys in there that were just studs. And so I'm going to let you take over here, Wade. I want your take on this. I have my notes. I'll give them to you after you tell me your take on what happened between Brock and Randy Orton.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole segment, went about 12 minutes. And obviously the finish, I want to work backwards from the finish, because the finish is Brock gets hard way blood with some elbows on Randy. Clearly, I think definitively, intentionally trying to draw blood. That's how you draw blood in MMA. It's known that that's the best way to open up a cut. They were going for blood. I don't think they were going for that much necessarily, and that might have slightly altered the planned finish, because I thought that the announcement that Brock won by TKO was done clumsily. And I think that announcement came too late. And that might have been just simply because Orton was bleeding so much, the referee called for medics as opposed to waving off the match and saying, that's it, TKO win for Brock. That's my guess on the finish. I think everything went as it was supposed to, with the possible exception that because Orton bled so much from the stiff elbows that it threw off the timing of the TKO announcement. Brock dominated Randy early on. Suplex City. It was like the beginning of the SummerSlam John Cena match a couple years back, where it's like, wow, this guy's still a monster. And so early on, I'm watching this and I'm thinking the story here is we want to get Brock hot again because Vince has a match in mind. Again, maybe that Reigns match, where he wants Brock over huge and as a monster again, just remove any doubt. And but they protected Randy a little bit. I thought that the spot a few minutes in where Randy hit the RKO out of nowhere, that's his calling card now. That's what he's known for. That's how the match was sold. And I thought that Randy's facial expression after giving Lesnar the RKO was great. Just a little bit of trash talking to no one in particular. Like, this ain't over yet, folks. And I thought that was good. And I thought, okay, now we're in for a fight. Except we weren't. We were in for then Brock mounting and taking out Randy. After that, they each kind of kicked out of each other's finishers. I think the idea with Randy is, he's going to lose by TKO and get destroyed by Brock, but we'll give him something because he'll kick out of the F5 and he'll hit a couple of his big spots. So, and I don't think you get hurt by Brock kicking out of your finisher. Because it's Brock.
Yes.
It's freaking Brock. So yeah, I think they each gave each other big moves. They each got to kick out of them. But in the end, Brock took off the gloves and did what fighters do when they want to draw blood, is the point of the elbow to the vulnerable skin on the skull, in the forehead and top of the head area. And it was a amazing, brutal picture, and I'm really curious to see where they go from here. I think it would be storyline-wise wrong to not suspend Brock Lesnar for what he did to Shane McMahon, and I'm intrigued and curious what is up with Shane getting involved and getting the F5 also. I'm very interested to hear what you thought of this. So those are my thoughts, Steve.
Well, I mean, I loved it because they left with the heat. Okay, you hear them say all the time, hey, man, we're here to put smiles on people's faces. Hey, man, they left people in question. People in the arena didn't know whether to crap or whine their watch. They didn't know what to think. Many of them, they did have heat at the finish. He went on to attack him a few more times after he hard-weighed him with the elbows, which was intentional. But the match, I thought the match was perfect because when I heard the matchup, I was like, Randy's coming back, but I just don't see what they're going to do. And it was so logical. He took him to Suplex City. He's kicking his ass, and he just throws him on that damn table, and as he's picking him up, just like you said, RKO out of nowhere. I've got it in my notes. And then Randy's got that look on his face back in the ring. And Brock's selling big time. And here's the thing about Brock. That big, strong bastard, he will sell his ass off for you when you bring it. And
yes.
Randy brought it. I mean, that's a credit to Brock, the biggest monster in the business. And mister, when you get him in a bad way, he will sell his ass off for you. Premier stuff. Goes back in the ring, and bam, I'll be damned if Randy doesn't catch him with the DDT from outside in. Again, the way Brock crumpled there, and they got a little tangled up. It's just an epic picture, and Brock just goes down like the Titanic, this giant mastodon that he is. And then goes for the RKO in the ring. Brock kicks out. Brock, another big-time sell, goes for the kick. Lesnar, big F5. Orton kicks out. Takes the gloves off, and then, I saw that coming. When he took off the gloves, and then the punches were the punches, but when he started throwing the elbows, I knew what was happening there. And yep. Like you said, there's a little bit of disconnect in the winner by TKO. But for me, if I'm Randy, I think it was a perfect finish to the match. It was so violent, though. I think it took a lot of the crowd aback because they weren't expecting to see something so graphic. So I thought it was great for Brock because it shows this vicious side of him. And as far as Randy goes, hey, man, the doctor stopped the match. There was blood just pouring out of his head. It was an amazing picture. But it was shocking if you weren't ready for it. And I'll tell you what, man, he opened his ass up with those elbows right there to the top of his skull. Does the F5 on Shane McMahon. And more heat on Randy, and of course, he leaves. I just thought it painted just a badass picture of this tough ass guy that I don't know if they can control. He just, F5's your commissioner. Like you said, they've got to find him, do something, suspend him. A lot of people thought this match or everything was too short for what it was intended to do. I loved it. I love Randy's performance, and I love Brock's performance.
Like so many things, it's all about the follow-up, too.
Yes.
They have an opportunity, because this is the thing. Vince McMahon, and there's been a lot of reasons to criticize his creative, and I did so earlier with what he enjoys doing with John Stewart and Anderson and Gallows, and I think on the undercard, he does some stuff that I think undercuts and weakens. And they would counter-argue, no, you're looking at it as a pro wrestling fan, and we're in the business of getting the brand out there and making it accessible to advertisers, and having John Stewart be involved in something like that makes it seem advertiser-friendly, and it satisfies our USA Network executives because they think, hey, if John Stewart's involved, it must be okay. I get all that, but I'm still critical of it. I think there's a better way to put it in context. This, though, is where Vince McMahon often shines. He has his eye on the big picture. He did since WrestleMania 1. He thinks about where is the next big surge in business going to come from. And he's thinking, Brock Lesnar is my best asset in that regard. He's the guy who can disrupt our business model and get people who aren't paying for the network to pay to see a big match down the line. Whenever Brock's next pay-per-view match is, it's going to be a bigger deal than what they did with Dean Ambrose, and it's going to be a bigger deal than even what they did with Randy Orton, although I thought they did a nice job hyping it, and that video package was tremendous. This is setting up something very specific that Vince McMahon has in mind, and I'm curious what it is. Steve, I am a little fearful that Shane taking the F5 means we're going to see Brock against Shane, because Shane took it to Undertaker in Hell in a Cell. Am I crazy to even entertain that notion, or do you watch that and think, knowing Vince McMahon, working with him, seeing what he did with Shane earlier this year, is there a chance they're going to do that?
I don't think there's a chance in hell. Good. Right off the top of my head, absolutely no way, because first of all, Shane's got the balls to do it, from a booking standpoint, certainly. And as a performer, Shane will do anything. I love that guy. But I just don't think you come out whole by him by Shane getting decimated by Brock. It just... The F5 was enough. Whether it gets fined, suspended, or there's bad blood forevermore between the two, you can't trust Brock, or he's just an animal. I don't think you put him in the ring with Shane, because the only thing he can do with him is mop the floor with him. Look what he just did with Randy Orton. So I think they built that thing perfectly. I loved what they did with John Cena and AJ Styles, and all of a sudden, bam! At the end of the show, heat. Your monster guy goes just ballistic on one of your top guys who's making a return. he's got something to be pissed off about. That he never wanted the doctor to stop the damn match. So I like the way it ended. No, I don't think they're planning for Brock versus Shane at all. I could be wrong, but I think at all.
Oh, I really hope not. I asked somebody who would know last night.
And that's with respect to Shane McMahon. I'm just saying, because it really doesn't matter who was in that spot. It's the fact that they're the commissioner. You don't put them in there with Brock because that's how dangerous the guy is. And at least that's their perception, and that's what they're building.
Absolutely, and it makes sense for Shane to be out there for another reason.
Sure.
He's the SmackDown guy. Shane is coming out to protect his asset. Stop this monster, and I get that, and it works in that context. So I'm not trying to be alarmist. I was a critic of Shane being a credible opponent of Undertaker, even though a lot of people loved it, and it was this big spectacle at WrestleMania. I just thought credibility wise, it didn't set well with me. I'd really not like Shane against Brock being treated as credible. I think that would be a jump in the shark for a lot of people when it comes to Shane. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't think it will. Although I emailed somebody who would know last night, they replied about other things I asked about, non-wrestling related, did not reply to that question. Can I rule out Shane? So somebody who I think would be privy to it didn't answer. Maybe they just don't know that, and that's possible too. But I think they would. So anyway, what do you think in the context of Roman Reigns against Rusev looking as dominant and brutal and intense as he did, and juxtaposing that with what Brock did to Randy? Is Vince creating that visual picture to build up a heel Brock who beat up Shane, uncontrollable, against Vince's continued project to get Roman Reigns over as a badass babyface top draw?
Hey man, I thought the people, from what I hear, I never know, when they're masking out the crowd, when they're what they're doing, just based on noise. And sometimes I put my headphones on while I'm watching my computer, or I'll take it off and not even listen. I was really trying to listen to I thought he got a pretty decent reception coming out and giving that final spear. If he'd have continued up, a little bit longer with that enthusiasm after that spear, I thought it could have roped him in a little bit more. This is being very critical. I think he's still got a ways to go with Roman Reigns. He's making strides. He's got so much stuff on. Sometimes he dies during his sell. He's sell his ass off, but he's dying a little bit too much because he's a big guy. He's just got to sell on the run, kind of like Taker did a little bit. So sometimes he'll die during his sell. He needs to stay alive, keep his face up, good-looking guy. But, if they stick with him, I think he'll turn the corner. But he ain't ready to go with Brock right now, so you still got more work to do. If that's the ultimate goal, he's got several more months to get there before you put him with Brock, in my opinion.
And otherwise, I don't see a lot of guys on the roster who are credible, fans would buy as a credible opponent for Brock, whether Brock's a heel or facing a heel or a face. I mean, Samoa Joe, I think, has the girth, the credibility, the badass demeanor to work, and I hope we see that match. Joe mentioned Brock, called him out a little bit on a mainstream media interview a couple weeks back. So I hope that was a sign of things to come. I'd love to see Joe against Brock. Brock's got a 2-3 inches on Joe height-wise, but I think standing face-to-face, they can make it work.
And with the bag of tricks that Joe's got, all of his weapons, that guy's so versatile. He's got a tremendous moveset, tremendous psychology. I would think, Brock would love to work with Joe because, like, he does have some size to him. He's not a real muscular guy. He's not a body guy, but god dang, he can work his ass off. And this could be a place, maybe the way he's built, it wouldn't be so easy for Brock to just take him to Suplex City and they can work a little bit of a Joe-style match. Yep. Holy smokes. And then Brock gets away from Suplex City just for a match or two and just displays that amazing athletic ability that he has. And then, just does his ground and pound or whatever he wants to do. But it's a great experiment or great chance to take Brock into a different level. So all of a sudden you've seen him just smash people in Suplex City, and all of a sudden, bam, here comes Joe with this new style, or because, of what the size could be with those two guys in the ring, and just bring out a total different dynamic in what Brock's been doing for the last year and a half. And Brock's on fire right now. I love what that guy's doing. Of course, Paul Heyman's a great bonus. But let's wrap this show up because we've been talking for almost 2 hours. Wade, break down to the people who and what you are, how they can find your stuff.
All right, 4 things quick. PWTorch.com. News every day, live pay-per-view coverage, special features. Keep up on the news. Follow us on your mobile phone or website. Number 2, MMATorch.com. Tons of new writers, great coverage. We got a great staff of writers. Live fight coverage coming up this Saturday for another UFC Fox show. The Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz breakdown. I think our coverage is unmatched in terms of analyzing what happened the night of and what's going to happen with both guys going forward. So MMATorch.com, our sister brand. Third, I host a post-Raw and post-SmackDown show live right after Raw goes off the air now, starting this week. It's a new format for us. So if you want to hear what I say about Raw, call in and talk about it with me and co-hosts. It's PWTorchLivecast.com. We do a show 6 days a week, but I'm hosting now Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I do an interview every Thursday. Raw and SmackDown post shows Monday and Tuesday. And then fourth, PW Torch VIP. We do a ton of – we got 28 years of archives, tons of exclusive podcasts every month, everything ad-free website. A sale code if you want to sign up just for listeners of the show. I'm not advertising it anywhere else. SLAM16 is the coupon code. SLAM16. Go to pwtorch.com/govip. pwtorch.com/govip and dive in for $5 off our normal $10 rate. So for $5, get a full month and see what VIP is all about.
Wade, I sure appreciate you joining me for SummerSlam. As I give it a thumbs up. Enjoyed a lot of the matches. Sometimes the crowd wasn't where I thought they'd be, but we talked about all those other reasons. Thumbs up to WWE. Congrats to all the guys and all the gals for working so hard. Hopefully Sasha Banks heals up and gets back in the squared circle. I wish her all the best. A couple of risky moves there. Hopefully she's just fine. Good talking to you, Wade.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast right off into the sunset. Before I do, I got to give you guys something to watch. You need to watch SummerSlam on the WWE Network for $9.99. I don't know if you can get the pay-per-view on YouTube or not. If you do, you can. I highly recommend the event. I thought it was a damn good show. There's some badass performances there. Many thanks to Wade Keller for talking about SummerSlam with me and offering his opinions on the same event that I watched, SummerSlam. I highly recommend you watch it. There's some badass stuff in there highlighted by the John Cena AJ Styles match, and I really enjoyed the Brock Lesnar storyline with Randy Orton and so much more. Hope everybody had a good time at the event, and safe travels to all the guys and girls as they go back down the road. Hey, gang, no plugs. I just want to say thank you to all the sponsors who help keep this show on the air for free, because they're the ones who let me do this for you twice a week. So big thanks to ddpyoga.com/Austin. Get 20% off the DDP Yoga DVDs and 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app for a limited time. Big thanks to DraftKings. Use my promo code Steve to play for free with your first deposit. Big thanks to Loot Crate. Win a free 3-month subscription to the new WWE Slam Crate. Just tweet, I want Loot Crate's WWE Slam Crate to PodcastOne and use the hashtag Steve Austin. And, of course, a big shout-out to Amazon. They've been supporting this podcast since day one. If you use my Amazon links whenever you're doing any online shopping, Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast. It doesn't cost you anything extra. There's no hidden fees or charges. You buy whatever you plan on buying and help out the podcast in the process. You can find my Amazon links by going to PodcastOne.com. You click on the Killer Deals button in the top right corner of the page, and then you hit the Steve Austin Show button. I got Amazon links for USA, UK, and Canada. So go to PodcastOne.com, click the Killer Deals button in the top right corner, then click on the Steve Austin Show. All of my great sponsors are there. All of my Amazon links are there, too. I appreciate the fact that you guys listen to this show. Thank you very much. And coming up on Thursday's Unleashed show, I talked to the one and only first ever Intercontinental Champion, one of the greatest Finnish guys in the history of the business. It's my conversation that I had with Pat Patterson, WWE Hall of Famer, and a guy who was instrumental in helping so many people in this business, and a guy who got over in every territory he ever worked. Man, this guy has got some stories, so many that he's written in a book called Accepted. It's a phenomenal read, and you guys should check it out. It's all about Pat Patterson, his story coming up in Montreal, and his travels through the great business that we know as professional wrestling. Pat Patterson will be on Unleashed to talk about the book and share some stories right here on the podcast. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, My name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.